Morrison's, the supermarket group, and an AIM-listed company called Produce Investments. The current issue is more active involvement from shareholders, particularly with the major companies, where I think there's been a big change over the last 5 years, where there is much more scrutiny of things like remuneration, particularly remuneration, which has got quite heavy, because there has been quite a big increase, certainly in FTSE 100 boards, of the level of remuneration. So that is a major issue at the moment. And quite rightly so. Shareholders need to be protected, and that's what non-executive directors are there for, is to protect the interests of shareholders. So the weight of corporate governance has certainly been piled on over the last few years. And things like the government's, particularly in the supermarket sector, the government's appointment of a grocery adjudicator has actually put a lot more emphasis, again quite rightly, on organisations like this, which fall very much into the role of the non-executive directors. Certainly the larger organisation, it is the structure that you've still got them in the smaller organisations, but it's very clear that you've got an audit committee, a remuneration committee, a corporate compliance committee, so on and so forth, nominations committee, so that it's very much structured, more structured, and there's probably more non-executive directors than you get on a small board. So if I look at the two that I'm on at the moment, then it's very clear structures. Those committees will take 3 or 4 hours every board session, whereas in a smaller company we do go through those things, but it's very much shorter conversations because they're not as big and the issues aren't as great. Well, I think the whole thing is fascinating, but there is a real responsibility, because as a director, as a non-executive director, you carry just as much responsibility as any of the other executive directors. But in my case, I came from a food manufacturing background, and as a supplier to the major supermarkets, I'm now finding myself on a supermarket board, which that is fascinating for me to learn about retailing, having been a supplier, but learning about retailing is a whole new set. And previous board, FTSE 100 board I was on, was Persimmon the house builder. Never been a house builder in my life, but 9 years on the board, you learn a lot about house building. So exposure to other industries and other sectors is, for me, fascinating, which makes it all worthwhile. Well, I think a lot revolves around the quality of the chairman, that around the boardroom table, the dynamics need to be right. And also the structure of the board, balance between executive directors and non-executive directors. You don't want a balance the wrong way on either. But in terms of board dynamics, the role of the chairman is absolutely key. And obviously a choice of the non-executive directors themselves. That it's quite a skill being a non-executive director, because you are non-executive. And there is a big difference between non-executive and executive. There's a big difference between spending 1% of your total time in a business, which is typical for a non-executive director, versus somebody who's spending 100% of their time. You can't hope to know everything, but you've got to have the skill to detect the dynamics of the group, to understand where the company actually sits, and read between the lines. But a lot of the dynamics revolve around the quality of the chairman and the social interactions that he's able to deal with. Well, you're very much dependent on the executive for clear information, which is part of the role of the chairman, to make sure that that is timely and accurate. But also your instincts might tell you that I don't feel comfortable with what I'm being told. I don't feel comfortable with this strategy. And as an executive, which I've been a chief executive of a FTSE 250 company for over a decade, that your instincts are, as an executive, to get in there and argue the toss and really sort it out. But with that 1% of the time you spend in the business, you need to be absolutely clear that you know what you're talking about. And that is a big challenge for a good non-executive director.